guys to another Thursday edition of the Watch Party here on the Watch List. I'm JR. If you guys don't know that by now, the last name is Jackson. Does it say it right there at the bottom of the screen? Am I pointing at the right spot? There it is. Yeah, that's my name. I'm here. I'm on time. In fact, I was like 10 minutes early, bro. I was talking to several of you guys here over on the chat since I don't get to interact all that much because I'm always trying to just run through the stories and get my thoughts out. But I do see damn near everything you guys say. I think I review back a little bit from time to time. So if I missed you, if I didn't say hi, if I didn't address something that you were bringing up, as I keep telling you guys, I'm very active over on Instagram. Come find me there, JR Jackson. Of course, you can find me, shoot me a message. I try to message most everyone else back, talk to you guys what's going on, maybe your concerns, maybe your story ideas. I've taken a few from you guys, and I think it's worked out pretty well. I mean, I can't be everywhere, bro. I mean, at this stage of this style of the show where we do these lives, I mean, I'm in the planning, I'm in the editing, I'm in the hosting part, of course, obviously, and then back to the back editing part of it, and then everything else that goes into this. So it kind of takes up all of my thoughts and my energy. So I may miss things from time to time. Let me know how things are going. Maybe I can get this audio thing going that I was just telling you guys about. But since I got those 2 minutes of things out of the way, if you guys like what we're doing, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, like this particular stream, make sure more people see it. And if we say something that makes a lot of sense to someone that you know needs to hear it, share it to them too. Let them know, JR brought that up, bro. JR was talking about that. Let me know that. What's going on. It's a Thursday. We got one more day to the weekend, but we still have the madness going on in our government. I assume you guys had seen some of this, but the president of the United States was back on his denial train. I mean, I don't think he ever really got off. But this is him talking about the latest issues that JD Vance, dumbass JD Vance, got himself in the news over. A leak within the administration about this meeting that they were supposed to have about this problem that they've got.
Mr. President.
The two Kevins, very good.
Mr. President, is Vice President Vance hosting a gathering this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation?
Is he working on what?
What's that now?
Some kind of gathering of top advisors this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation.
I don't know. I could ask you that question. I don't know of it, but I think here's the man right here.
I saw a report today, and it's completely fake news. We're not meeting to talk about the Epstein situation, and I think the reporter who reported it needs to get better sources.
Look, the whole thing is a hoax. It's put out by the Democrats because we've had the most successful 6 months in the history of our country. And that's just a way of trying to divert attention to something that's total bullshit. Okay?
Mr. President.
Why does the president of the United States like to cuss like that all the time? Isn't this unbecoming of the president? Imagine if previous presidents had cussed as frequently as Donald Trump does when he's answering very basic, normal questions about a story that we all heard about that obviously is true. But I did notice something else really fast. It's a tick, I think, that he's got, or a way that he tries to avoid questions that he doesn't want to answer. If you notice, it's been multiple times in press conferences. Mr. President, you've got this scandal going on. Mr. President, your tariffs effing suck. Hey, Mr. President, you haven't ended these wars yet. He goes, what now? A pardon for who now? Hey, what are we talking about again now? What we're talking about again is how much you suck. But still, they want to deny this story about this potentially secret meeting for a strategy session on how to address the Epstein scandal that they continue to cover up. And if you need to have a strategy session about how to cover up the Epstein scandal, I think you're losing that argument because you're trying to cover up the Epstein situation. Matter of fact, let me let ABC News tell you exactly what was going on and the reasons why JD Vance's dumbass was trying to have this secret session.
The White House is weighing whether to release the transcript of a lengthy interview with Jeffrey Epstein co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell.
Well, all we really know is that the Vice President, J.D. Vance, will be hosting this strategy dinner as the administration and DOJ try and figure out their path forward as it relates to releasing more information publicly. Now, as we reported yesterday, we know that there has been a transcript generated of that hours-long meeting that the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche had with Maxwell. We know that a transcript exists. We also know that an audio recording of those meetings that occurred for 9 hours over 2 days also exists. Now, the question is, what Do they release from that? We know that the DOJ has said that they would share information at the appropriate time. We also know from our sources that Maxwell didn't say anything that could be viewed as derogatory against Trump. Now, that makes sense, perhaps, given that she is appealing her conviction up to the Supreme Court. We know that she does want a pardon. Her lawyer made that clear after the 2 days of meetings, and we know that she wants to get out of prison.
Yeah, the convicted sexual trafficking person wants to get out of prison. Also, is making her demands to this administration because she has what they want, which is this bad get out of responsibility card that they'd like to play as well. But as you can see, the story is about them trying to figure out whether or not they were going to have this session about whether or not they should release portions of something to say about Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's personal attorney, who's become the deputy at the DOJ, when he had that secret meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, and whether or not they should release it and how they should release it, because we got to get ahead of this story, even though we're about miles behind by their own doing. But as they're pointing out there, that ABC News report, they need to figure out what to do about this whole thing. And unsurprisingly, Ghislaine Maxwell had nothing bad to say about Donald Trump. It's weird how that works. But there was one person, she listed all the people of the administration that were in that meeting. I believe Kash Patel, of course, J.D. Vance, the chief of staff, of course, also Pam Bondi. But there was one person that I was expecting to maybe hear his name about why he was or wasn't there. They explained that as well. And the reasons he wasn't there, I'm going to get into in a second.
At this meeting will be the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, the Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, and we believe the Chief of Staff, the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, will also be in attendance.
Catherine, Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino, though, is not on that list of expected attendees. What do you make of that?
No, he's not. And that is an interesting thing to watch, because we know that obviously he clashed with the Attorney General, with people in the White House over the handling of the Epstein files. In fact, it was about a month ago where it got so bad internally that he didn't come to the office. Now, we know, at least through our reporting, that he's back and that he's been over at the FBI building. But it is telling that he hasn't appeared. At least we haven't seen him on camera. We haven't seen him arriving at any White House meetings, and that he won't be at this meeting with the vice president. There's still a lot more to learn about Bongino's role and how that's been, at least in the past month. But we haven't heard much from him, at least on this topic.
The last time we talked about a meeting that had Pam Bondi, Susie Wiles, and Kash Patel, it ended in an explosion where Dan Bongino, the deputy director of the FBI, stormed out after allegations he was leaking information about the attorney general. That was all over the information release of the Epstein case.
Dan Bongino was not in the meeting. The deputy at the FBI, right under Kash Patel, two of the guys that were talking about the Epstein files so much, but it was those 5 players that were supposed to be in this secret meeting for strategy sessions on what to do about Epstein, and the meeting that Todd Blanche, who was in the meeting, or supposed to be in the meeting, had with Ghislaine Maxwell. Dan Bongino hasn't been much seen or heard from. And I've been noticing that. I've been waiting to see when he pops his head back up, like, whack-a-mole, before they knock his ass back out of the way. Like, shush, shut the fuck up, Dan. We don't need you here. But I don't think I heard about the part where they were suspicious of him leaking information about the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. Bro, like, in a room full of thieves and criminals like this, eventually somebody's got to stop trusting the others that are there, especially when people start seeing the cracks and the incompetence that they're continuing down the road of. They're always worried about who's going to snitch. What reason does anybody have to trust this administration? Everything they're doing is like a mob. It's like criminals openly in plain view telling you what you're not seeing, what you're seeing is not real. Dan Bongino's missing. I mean, not physically and like off the map or something like that, but he's not in front of cameras anymore. And if you go back to that appearance that Bongino and Kash Patel had on Fox Business, I believe it was Fox Business, one of them, but they were talking to Maria Bartiromo. They looked scared shitless. They were like, well, everything I'm telling you, it's what I'm telling you. And apparently Bongino's upset at how they've rolled this whole thing out and how it's making him look. He might be the one person. I'm gonna give him this little bit, as much as I couldn't stand Dan Bongino. This is my speculation. I'm gonna give him this one little bit of credit. He might have been the one who's seen all this and understands what's happening and was like, we shouldn't do this. We should go ahead and take these guys down, like he wanted to when he thought it was just a bunch of Democrats and had nothing to do with any other powerful and influential people across the world. So Dan Bongino, he might have to watch his back because they already don't trust him enough to keep him off the map. This is crazy, bro. It's like a soap opera, but that's the kind of level of craziness that this administration is going through that makes too many people think that this isn't real or that somebody's making this up or they're telling stories. Here's some more stories, because as they planned this whole thing and all the media circus went around it and people started asking questions that made Donald Trump say it's bullshit. Since they were asking those questions, the meeting got shut down, but they're acting like it was never going to happen. Check this out.
Top Trump officials were set to attend a dinner at the vice president's residence at the Naval Observatory this evening. On the menu, a strategy discussion on how to handle fallout from the administration's own handling of the Epstein files. Now, after intense coverage, officials tell CNN that the dinner is now in flux. In fact, some people in the Trump administration say this dinner was never actually going to happen. Now, we stand by the story here at CNN. Either way, we don't know whether it's ultimately going to be called off or moved to another location, rescheduled. In any case, as we noted, Vance's office denied such a meeting was taking place.
Well, Jake, I do want to clarify a little bit here because so many sources inside of the White House and inside of Vice President Vance's orbit had told us that this meeting existed. And no one is actually denying that they were going to have dinner tonight. What they're denying is that there was a meeting set to talk about Epstein's strategy. They are being very careful with how they parse these words. And because of the coverage, because of the fact that there was so much focus on the Epstein portion of this meeting or of this dinner, that is why it is now in flux.
They were still going to have the meeting though, bro. But I mean, we're going to talk about Epstein or anything. Why would we talk about Epstein? It's not like Epstein is ever being talked about. It's not like we're trying to cover this whole thing up. I don't even think anymore that they think they're smarter than anyone else. They just don't care. They're like, we'll just tell you what's happening. And as you poke holes through all of our very porous stories, then we'll just say, this is fake news, which I'm going to get to a crazy quote in a second about that. But they just need to shift the way that they're posing this meeting that was supposed to be about strategizing how to roll out this whole meeting that Todd Blanche had with Ghislaine Maxwell. These guys aren't good at doing the crimes. They're not good at covering up the crimes. They don't have any kind of thought process in how they can do this. They just do it. And I'm still amazed that this many people will carry their water. I mean, I understand, corrupt and evil people that are working next to the guy, like Marco Rubio, who sold his soul to him. Take a look at Marco Rubio's eyes next time you see him speak, or just a still picture of him. He's got sunken eyes and his face is starting to drag down. Dude's got like some evil things running through his head. And he's like, man, my soul is missing and I just don't know what to do. But I guess this is just my job now. The kinds of people that surround them, that are surrounded by Donald Trump, you find that they kind of don't have much left inside of them except for darkness. I mean, that's just a thought of mine. But still, as we're talking about this meeting, this is what so many people are still missing. And this is what I was looking for right when I heard it. You can have a secret meeting about how to approach the Epstein scandal and how you're covering it up, but no mention of the victims. No mention of what you're going to do to get to the bottom of this whole thing by talking to the victims or the victims that are no longer with us, their families, about what they went through, because that should be the main focus here, instead of literally showing we're here to talk about covering this up and maybe making this go away. They've openly said things like that. So Virginia Giuffre's family, of course, the woman who passed away earlier this year, they had a statement where they were talking about why they're so frustrated with the way that this administration is handling things, especially since they're completely ignoring them.
Family of Jeffrey Epstein victim Virginia Giuffre is now speaking out about the strategy dinner top Trump administration officials are set to have tonight. Caitlin, what is her family saying?
one thing they reiterated was they want, in the conversations that have been happening on the administration's handling of this, is for people to remember the survivors and the victims at the heart of all of this. And they've issued a new statement on our team's reporting last night about this meeting that is planned at the vice president's house tonight. They say, quote, missing from this group is, of course, any survivor of the vicious crimes of convicted perjurer and sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. They say their voices must be heard above all. And we also call upon the House subcommittee to invite survivors to testify.
It's a simple statement. It's a very simple thing to ask for. How many of these types of situations have you seen them? And I've mentioned this before. The Republicans have passed legislation, and they focused on undocumented immigrants that have come here and that have committed heinous crimes like murder and abuse and kidnappings and all that stuff. Right? They've named legislation after the victims. They've had the families of those victims stand there. They've had the families of those victims at State of the Union addresses and probably at the RNC. They want to showcase the victims of these crimes and the families of the victims of these crimes so that you can understand how serious this is and why they need to take action. But for some reason, they've completely ignored the victims of this huge sexual trafficking ring from a guy that they said was a creep and the worst person ever. But why come you're not showcasing these folks who want to talk about their family members and maybe even the victims that are still with us to talk about what it is they went through and maybe name some names? Instead, they want to talk to one of the culprits of that trafficking ring and have a secret conversation with her. Then right before having a strategy meeting on what to release about that secret conversation with her that has to do with Donald Trump saying he just might pardon her. I think it makes a lot of sense for these families and these victims to be outraged at the way that this is going, but they can't see it because they're in full cover Donald Trump's ass mode. This is like a criminal version of The Apprentice. He sends off this group to go off. Okay, you five, you're on this team. Go off and fix this for me because they're on my ass. Don't invite Dan. Bongino's going to fuck everything up. Bongino has been fired from The Apprentice of covering Donald Trump's ass on the Epstein files right now. Bongino's not in the group, but then these five have been dispatched to take care of things. It's why when he was asked about, again, Todd Blanche going to talk to them, he had only this to say about Todd Blanche, nothing about the victims. He needs to make glowing statements about Blanche so that he's in the clear.
Your deputy attorney general sat down with her recently.
Well, let me tell you, he's a very talented man. His name is Todd Blanche. He's a very legitimate person, very high. I just a very highly thought of person, respected by everybody. And I didn't talk to him about it, but I will tell you that whatever he asked would be totally appropriate. And it's not an uncommon thing to do that. And I think he probably wants to make sure that, people that should not be involved or aren't involved are not hurt by something that would be very, very unfortunate, very unfair to a lot of people. But I will say this, Todd Blanche is one of the most highly respected people you'll ever meet. So I know this. I didn't discuss it with him, but anything he talked about with her or the fact that he did that, not unusual, number one, and most importantly is something that would be totally above board.
It'll be totally above board. I mean, trust me. What you should know is Todd Blanche is on the up and up. He's the most honest man you'll ever meet in your life. He just has secret meetings with child sex traffickers secretly and then tries to hide the information about it. He also has meetings with the attorney for said child sex trafficker who's doing 20 years in prison and is best friends with her attorney. But what I need you to know is that Todd Blanche is on the up and up. Everything he said and everything he's going to say is going to be immaculate. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be crazy good. I don't know what don't forget, the president, have no idea what they're talking about, but I do know whatever it is that they end up talking about is going to be great. I haven't heard it. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who Ghislaine Maxwell is. Barely heard who Jeffrey Epstein was. I damn near know what I am. But what I do know is that Todd Blanche is going to say something wonderful and it's going to completely exonerate me from anything that's happening. What a loser this dumbass is. So of course they're angry about the story coming out and forcing them to nix their plans to have this meeting to discuss the strategy going forward, since the strategy so far has absolutely sucked. So one of their officials decided to have a response to this reporting that I think was initiated by CNN. And since people are actually listening, this was the childlike response about this happening. This is from the White House Communications Director, Stephen Chung. He said this to CNN. This is nothing more than CNN trying desperately to create news out of old news. Trump already addressed this issue in an interview with Newsmax, a real news outlet that routinely gets better ratings than CNN. Shut the fuck up. So Todd, Stephen Chung, his response to this huge story where we just talked about how the victims are upset, devastated, and trying to figure out why they're not talking to them about coming after the culprits, rich, elite, connected people across the country and the world. His response is actually, hold on. This guy's response is actually the Trump administration. What it is they did is they talked to a real news organization. It's called Newsmax. Maybe you've heard of them. They actually have better ratings. What does that have to do with anything? First of all, I doubt it. But then, even if so, when your MAGA folks run there to get their daily dose of running from actual reality, what does that have to do with the fact that they reported you were going to have this secret meeting and JD Vance had to hurry up and clean himself up and get away from it and say, it's never happened. You guys need better sources. Bro, these excuses suck. Have a strategy meeting on how best to push back on people asking you very normal, basic questions. Start with that strategy meeting, because I'm not sure what they're going to discuss in this one that has anything to do with getting anywhere, because they're really, really bad at this. Stephen Chung, shut up. So tired of these losers. When are we going to stop believing the stupid people, the blatantly, obviously stupid people? They're the dumb ones, right? They're the stupid ones. Like everything they say doesn't make any sense. They're all of their arguments conflict with each other, and it looks like a huge cover up, because it is. Let's go to this next story. I talked about it in the little short that I uploaded. There's an actor. There's an actor that wants to help out his country. And he decided to post this video where he's talking about the things that he wants to do to rid our country of its crime. Maybe you recognize him.
Hey everybody, Dean Cain here. And for those who don't know, I am a sworn law enforcement officer as well as being a filmmaker. I felt it was important to join with our first responders to help secure the safety of all Americans, not just talk about it. So I joined up. And here's your opportunity to join ICE. You can earn lots of great benefits and pay. Yet since President Trump took office, ICE has arrested hundreds of thousands of criminals, including terrorists, rapists, murderers, pedophiles, MS-13 gang members, drug traffickers, you name it, very dangerous people who are no longer on the streets. You can defend your homeland and get great benefits like a $50,000 signing bonus. Think about that. Student loan repayment legally, enhanced retirement benefits, and special pay for those in the field operations and law enforcement roles. I don't get that special pay, but you also don't need an undergraduate degree. You can get to work right away. So if you want to help save America, ICE is arresting the worst of the worst and removing them from America's streets. I like that. I voted for that. They need your help. We need your help to protect our homeland and our families. So check into it, as I said, and join today if it's something that tickles your fancy. Because
Dean Cain can't escape 1992. He can't escape the one role he played as Superman. He can't get away from it. In fact, I don't know if he added, hopefully, I really hope he didn't add that Superman music. I really hope he didn't. Hope someone else reposted that and put that on, because that's just pathetic. And also, dude sat backwards in the chair. Again, I'm going to relate to the young people. So guys, how you doing? Who still does that? That was like a trope back in 1987. If you sit backwards in your chair, you're showing the kids that you're not going to go with the man. You're non-conforming. You're going to do things the different way. You know what? This guy's a rebel. He sits backwards in his chair like a fucking loser. But he wants to tell you guys to join ICE. You don't need a degree. You can be a dumbass. As long as you're angry, violent, and aggressive, and you're broke as hell, and you need some money that we've siphoned and stolen from the rest of Americans, we're going to give you some of it to join on and be a part of the Gestapo. Isn't that great? And Dean Cain wants to protect people from rapists. Think about the president. Rapists, pedophiles, drug dealers. So he wants to get them off the streets. Is Dean Cain going to put a mask on when he goes to the streets to try and rip people away from their families? Or to take someone off of a job site that they're on? Is that what Dean Cain's going to do? Let me show you what Dean Cain is joining up for. Let me show you some of the things that Dean Cain just gave that stupid ass ad for that he wants to join and says is taking violent criminals off the streets.
He's coming with you, ma'am. I don't have any choice. I don't have any choice.
No, mami.
No, aquí estoy contigo. Aquí estoy contigo. No, mami, no vale. No vale. I understand, sir, but you have to come with us.
No.
Señor, se me veía bien en un momento.
Ya está muy abuelita, lo que está pasando ya está muy tarde. Abuelita, ya no hay cómo hacer.
Hey, watch this.
If it tickles your fancy to rip children away from their parents while they're crying and saying, no, please, why, stop. If it tickles your fancy to snatch children away from their moms because you're going after violent criminals, rapists, drug dealers, human traffickers, you can be a human trafficker too. You can break the law. You can bust through the Constitution. You can follow behind Donald Trump, and you can be a piece of shit too. Just follow Dean Cain. Look at his face. It looks like a piece of shit. That's what Dean Cain wants you to sign up for. That's what they're glorifying by saying, we're going to get rid of your college loans that they railed against doing in order to relieve people of their burdens. But as long as you're willing to harm as many people as possible, be violent, and you can do it anonymously with a mask over your face, we'll even give you weapons. You don't have to have a degree, but if you do, we'll give you weapons, and you can go and threaten and intimidate people and take them from their families and call it justice. Just follow Dean Cain. He's Superman. He played a role of an illegal immigrant that came from not another country, but another planet that was falling apart. I think it blew the fuck up before he got away. Landed on some old people's farm and was taken in. And did they look at that kid and go, get this weird alien out of here? Superman is literally an alien. But he wants you to take part in that kind of activity. And after you take part in that kind of activity, maybe one of the places you can go to do that outside of snatching children from their mother's arms is at immigration hearings. You know, those places where Republicans tell you if immigrants come into this country to do it the right way and you'll have citizenship. Instead, this is the way they approach immigration hearings.
At the same time he is deporting undocumented migrants, about 100 immigration judges have been fired or transferred, or they've resigned.
In July alone, 20 judges have been let go. We talked to 3 of them about how it went down.
It was arbitrary, unfair, and it's an attack on the rule of law. It's an attack on judges.
George Pappas, Jennifer Payton, and Carla Espinoza were all fired this month by email. They'd been federal immigration judges who together ruled on thousands of cases in Chicago and Boston. Did they give you a reason why in your email?
My email was 3 sentences. I had no cause, I had no explanation.
We as judges were in fear, we were concerned, and that makes it very difficult to be impartial. We were not succumbing to that pressure, but it does feel like pressure.
Were you ever told how to rule?
Yes,
What'd they say?
they told me, grant the motions to dismiss. This is when ICE was roaming the courthouses, because if we dismiss the case, that person that responded then leaves the court vulnerable to immediate apprehension and expedited removal.
Just so people understand, you grant a motion to dismiss the case.
Correct.
Now the individual what?
They are no longer in proceedings.
Once they left the courtroom, more often than not, they will be handcuffed and led away by the ICE officers.
You know, justice, firing immigration judges and telling them how to rule cases and to dismiss them so that they can walk into hallways. And since that case is no longer there, they can take them and send them out of here. Because, you know, violent rapists, drug dealers, human traffickers, and murderers show up at immigration hearings on time and regularly to get their migration status standard. As long as you go after those folks, you're fighting all of this crime in our country. They're letting us know that they don't care about the rule of law, that they don't care about due process, that they don't care about American citizens. I'm going to get to that a little bit more. So again, Dean Cain wants this process to continue down. You get to be on the streets. That leads then to people going after immigration judges, which then sends people to places like this.
I thought it would get better, but it never did. It's inhumane the way that they're keeping their residents. When I got there, it was overwhelming.
She shared her state of Florida credential, which lists her position as a corrections officer.
They said it was going to be 5 days on, 2 days off. I was aware that it was going to be the alligator Alcatraz. We had to use the porta-johns. We didn't have hot water half the time. Our bathrooms were backed up. It looked like an oversized dog kennel.
She says each tent had 8 large cages.
Each pod holds 35 to 38 inmates. They have bunk beds in them. They have no sunlight. There's no clock in there. They don't even know what time of the day it is. They shower every other day or every 4 days. The bathrooms are backed up because you got so many people using them.
On rainy days, she says, the water pours into the tents.
Not everybody there is a criminal. These people are still human. You pulled them from their livelihood. They're scared. They don't speak our language.
Lindsay says she was fired from the facility after she caught COVID and was accused of altering medical paperwork submitted to the company. She denies the allegations and says she's coming forward because of what she saw.
And yeah, I was fired. And yeah, I'm pissed off. But more so than ever, like, they're doing wrong.
That woman used to work at one of the most notorious internment camps that we have in the United States of America, Alligator Alcatraz, and she was telling her story of what it was. I want to talk about the irony of her being fired over catching COVID, by the way. I remember when this guy was in office the first time and he was covering that up and acting like that wasn't a big deal. Now that someone catches COVID, you get fired for that because we can't make COVID. That suddenly is real. Whatever. But she was fired and talked about all the details and the disgusting things that go on at Alligator Alcatraz. And that's where they're sending people. Overflowing toilets, flooding every time it rains. It's in the middle of Florida, bro. Sorry, it's like in the Everglades. And no running water, no hot water, no showers, no cleaning, nasty ass food. We've seen it. It's not like this one lady that they then fired and said is this ragtag woman came up with this whole story herself, especially since we saw some Florida representatives, Democratic ones, go down there and try to get in and get a glimpse of what was going on. And they reported the same stuff of the little bit that they saw. That's our mass deportation process in work. I want to go back a little bit to these fired immigration judges. Because again, as we're seeing, We're completely bypassing the Constitution. Dean Cain is very happy about us bypassing the Constitution. He's happy about us torturing people in internment camps. Dean Cain wants to recruit more of you idiots to go help them put more people in internment camps in the United States of America, and then go back on the 4th of July and rah and talk about how we fought back against Nazis. This is what else these immigration judges have to say.
Take a step, back up, back up.
CBS News has reported on the numerous cases where ICE agents detained immigrants as they exited their court hearings. With about 600 immigration judges left, courts now face a backlog of nearly 4 million cases. President Trump says it could take 200 years to resolve all these cases.
It is my opinion that this administration could give a hoot about the backlog.
The administration says repeatedly, these folks are here illegally. That's breaking the law. They got to go. Do they have a point?
Well, that's why they're in proceedings in court. There is law that we're applying, and they might have to go. They might not.
What's at stake here?
It's really the future of our country. If the funding is going to enforcement and there's no justice left, that shows that our country is no longer embracing the need for due process and for justice.
That's a big statement. The
Yes.
future of the country is at stake here. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. If you're attacking the very judges that adjudicate cases, there's not going to be a rule of law. That should concern everybody, not just immigrants, but U.S. citizens.
Today is them, is immigrants. What about tomorrow? Who's going to get due process denied next?
He already told you who's going to get their due process denied next. He already told the guy who runs CCOT over in Venezuela that the U.S. homegrowns are next. He told you that during the campaign. He wants to send homegrown criminals next. And as they keep calling everybody that they do this to a criminal, that little kid that was crying in their mother's arms, that criminal, you can be next if you defy the fascist in the White House. And these immigration judges that were fired, I remember people saying that folks with Trump derangement syndrome kept talking about how they're going to try and violate the law. They've violated the rule of law, and they're going after due process. That Nazi also, that's one of his main assistants, Stephen Miller, talked about how they're looking to negate due process. He said it months ago as they're doing it. So when judges say it, if you have this mindset, you're like, well, those judges are saying because they got fired. They got fired because they were still trying to follow the rule of law and also due process. And what it leads down to is the kind of people in power who literally either don't know what due process is or they're happy to violate it. This last guy, he's the Indiana lieutenant governor. His name is Micah Beckwith. He falls in that first category of the dumbasses who absolutely have no idea what due process is because they're way too racist to figure it out.
So due process is in this situation is: are you here legally?
That isn't.
That is due process. Yes, it is.
Due
So
process is getting arrested and charged with a crime and seeing a judge, and these people are not seeing a judge. That's not true.
They don't have a right to see a judge.
Why?
They came here illegally. They came here illegally.
If you are on American soil, your status does not matter. You have a legal right in this country for due process.
So due process is.
That's the lieutenant governor of a state in the United States, and he doesn't know what due process is. In fact, he thinks as long as you're here and I can call you whatever I want, I get to do with you whatever I want and bypass the judicial system. And they still call themselves Americans, freedom-loving Americans. But as long as I don't like you, as long as your skin is too brown, as long as I can look at you and not like what you say in your stances and your freedom of speech, that other right that we've got, I can go ahead and do whatever I want to you because I've got the power. And what's backing me are 18-year-olds that we're recruiting with long guns to run on the streets and snatch people out of their families' arms. By the way, Grumpy Cat, thank you. I'm sorry. I knew I had the country wrong. El Salvador is where CCUT is. Apologies. That's why I was pausing on that. I said, I know this isn't right. That's where CCUT is. But we've got folks like this who are in positions of power. The lieutenant governor of a state. Why would you be able to trust them? Bro, if you break the machine at the McDonald's because you don't know how to use it, they either fire you or they send you somewhere else. But if you don't know what the Constitution is and what the fuck due process is, you can continue to be a lieutenant governor in the United States of America. I hope that's some kind of deep fake video. I hope I got fooled like Chris Cuomo did when he posted that video of AOC. I hope that's what happened. I hope that's not real. Because if it's real, we're way too far gone. And when people come to vote that guy out, they're going to try and do some kind of redistricting or something. Who knows? Change up the rules so that they don't have to deal with that whole thing called, representative democracy anymore. Dean Cain. I got one more story, and this is gonna go to what I was teasing in that YouTube short that I posted on the page. If you guys go check it out, I did it right before I came on. But really fast, I want to say hi to a few of you guys because I missed you. Christina Elisa Brown, of course. How you doing? As usual, Grumpy Cat. Thank you again. I want to thank you for the correction there. I make mistakes all the time. Who else is around here, you guys, that I'm missing out on? Jostar Moon Peace, good to see you as well. So we've got more things happening. This crossed my timeline. Actually, someone sent this to me. I really wish I could have given the credit. Someone sent this to me on Instagram as I'm telling you guys to shoot me some stories and some thoughts. This isn't necessarily a story. It's just something that this one creator, Joey Engelman, posted over on Instagram. I want to give him the credit because he broke this down really well. And as I saw it, I was like, there's no way. There's no way this is real. 0%. I'm not falling for this. No way. This is crazy. I need you guys to tell me why this doesn't make sense because I'm still looking for reasons why it doesn't make sense. And I don't really want to believe it because I always rail against like conspiracy theories and stuff. But this is weird.
Clay Tiffany was an independent journalist and the fearless host of Dirge for the Charlatans. Notorious for being a thorn in the side of local officials and law enforcement, Clay Tiffany would probe into corrupt politicians and dirty cops, then broadcast his findings on his public access show. But with this fame came enemies in powerful places, one being Briarcliff police officer / bodybuilder Nicholas Tartaglione, who in 1997 pulled Clay Tiffany over, warned him to stop looking into the police department, said he has ties with the mob, then physically assaulted the TV host. Obviously, this led Clay to delve further into the cop, and so began a long-standing feud between the two. Tiffany dug into his past and found that Tartaglione had a history of assault in his time as a police officer. Clay Tiffany would slam him and the BPD on Dirge for the Charlatans, and in retaliation, Tartaglione would find him and beat him up. This happens at least 4 times, with the last confrontation putting Clay in the hospital. He would host the next episode from his hospital bed. Clay sued the police department, winning a big settlement, but Tartaglione was never charged or found guilty of a crime. Until this story goes somewhere I never could have predicted. Clay Tiffany passed away in March 2015 of natural causes, and the following year, Nicholas Tartaglione was arrested after killing 4 men over stolen drug money and burying them in a mass grave in the woods. Tartaglione, now facing a life sentence, has been behind bars since his arrest, where in 2019, he was the last person to share a prison cell with Jeffrey Epstein.
Come on, bro. First of all, there's the creepy music behind ding, doom, doom. And I was like, okay, this is going to be totally fake or whatever, but it's going to be entertaining. I mean, I like watching fiction sometimes. It's great. It's fun. I mean, why don't we go off into this land where we can just imagine this whole story and see the connections that are made? And so when that was sent to me, I really wish I would have taken the time to remember the viewer who sent this to me. All they did was send me that video. And I said, I have to see if there's any of this that makes any sense or has any truth to it. So Nicholas Tartaglione A former cop in upstate New York apparently went after this local access guy who was like this whistleblower, and he really investigated things back in the day. And they had their beef, and eventually Nicholas Tartaglione ended up in jail for killing 4 people. I'm just doing a quick recap. After killing 4 people because he was a drug dealer, after he was, I don't know, somehow dispatched from the police department, ended up in jail, and was Jeffrey Epstein's last cellmate in 2019. This being a part of the story where there's minutes missing in the jail, the prison video, and Jeffrey Epstein's death is being disputed by people who once said there's no way he killed himself, to who are now running the FBI and saying there's no way anybody should believe it. I just want to give a quick recap. So I looked a little bit into Nicholas Tartaglione and that whole story. Now I know this is from the New York Post, but I feel like this is something that's easily verifiable, and just looking through some records of people that existed with these names. A Westchester County federal jury found Briarcliff Manor cop Nicholas Tartaglione guilty in the gruesome 2015 slayings of Martin Luna, as well as 2 of his nephews and a family friend. Tartaglione, who by 2015 had traded his career in law enforcement for illegal drug trafficking, lured Luna into a meeting near a Chester, New York bar called the Liquid Lounge because the ex-cop believed Luna had stolen money from him. Not knowing he was being lured to his death, Luna brought along his 2 nephews, Miguel Luna and Urbano Santiago, as well as a friend, Hector Gutierrez. 4 guys show up to meet up with this guy who was apparently a violent person who went after people that he didn't like and would kill at the drop of a hat. Watch how it went down. When the 4 men arrived, Tartaglione tortured Martin Luna and forced one of his nephews to watch as he was strangled to death with a zip tie. The sadistic ex-cop and 2 associates then brought their 3 other victims to a remote wooded location, forced them to kneel, and executed them with gunshots to the back of the head. Tartaglione buried all 4 victims in a mass grave at the wooded location. Quote, Tartaglione's heinous acts represent a broader betrayal, as he was a former police officer who was once swore to protect the very community that he devastated. That's what U.S. Attorney Damian Williams said in a statement after that whole conviction. We've got names of prosecutors. We got names of people talking about what happened and actually the gruesome murder and the way it went down. Let's go to the rest of this, because again, from this same article. That was in 2015 when he was convicted of those murders. In 2019, Tartaglione briefly shared a cell with pedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein at the since closed Metropolitan Correctional Center. Epstein allegedly told his lawyers that Tartaglione, quote, roughed him up in the cell, but he was never charged with a crime and was cleared of any wrongdoing, is what his lawyer told the Post at the time. One more. This is the article. This isn't just from that guy on Instagram. You know this part. Epstein was found dead in his jail cell while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges in 2019. His death was later ruled a suicide by the New York City Medical Examiner's Office. Tartaglione faces life in prison at sentencing. He faces life in prison at sentencing for killing those 4 guys. No one really ever talked about him sharing a prison cell with Jeffrey Epstein. Yo, I'm going to go to comments right now. I need you guys to tell me why I'm crazy. I need you guys to tell me why I'm crazy, because I'm waiting to find out why I'm crazy. Who knows more about this? Who maybe lived somewhere in upstate New York and heard about this guy? Who remembers the guy from 1991? What was his name? I can't remember, the first guy with the weird afro, the Bob Ross afro, who apparently had this whole this local access show where he was busting cops and pissed off Nicholas Tartaglione, who whooped his ass several times before then going on to a life of further crime outside of the police department. Somebody tell me why I'm wrong. I'll take messages later. I'll take evidence against it. I just will, because I don't really want to believe it, because we always talk bad about conspiracy theories and all that stuff. but it's weird. I'm just saying, I don't have direct like a prison access records that can show that Nicholas Tartaglione, whatever his name is, I've messed it up 5 times, that he actually shared a cell with Epstein, but I have an article that talks about it. I don't actually have the death records of those 4 guys and all the names that they were given, but the New York Post should probably answer for making up this entire story. Maybe they should, because that's what I read. And I get it, it's the New York Post. It's not like it's the New York Times or anything like that. But somebody tell me why these dots aren't connecting. I'm just wondering. I'm looking. I mean, this is my last story for the hour, so I'm willing to look. So for any of you guys who are not in the chat right now or are watching this later, please, somebody tell me. somebody doesn't have to break this to me, because I want to know. Because every time anybody that's in a position of power now talks about Jeffrey Epstein's death, they do it with wide eyes. The leaders of the FBI did it with wide eyes. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino looked scared as hell when they talked about trying to cover this up and say that that's not what happened. But I don't want to sound like a crazy person. I'm just hearing and seeing what was written and what was in record. I haven't seen the records for myself, but there was all kinds of little posts and things that were talking about the details of these 2 guys' lives, including other 4 guys' lives who were lost at the hands of this same guy who seems to be really easy to kill. Not himself, but he's quick to kill. I'm just saying. I'm waiting for the answer. So anyways, hopefully I'll get the answer. And again, I'm not making any conclusions. I'm just presenting it to you guys because someone sent it to me. And I think it's crazy. That's all. You guys are talking about Kash Patel's eyes instead of talking about what it is that happened here. I need answers. Who's from New York? I'm not sure where upstate they said where it was. In fact, in case you guys, I want you guys to watch the story one more time. I'm sorry to do this. I usually don't do things like this, but I want you guys to watch the story one more time from Joey Engelman. I'm gonna give him credit again. I want you guys to watch this story and how he connects the dots in case you missed any pieces of it.
Clay Tiffany was an independent journalist and the fearless host of Dirge for the Charlatans. Notorious for being a thorn in the side of local officials and law enforcement, Clay Tiffany would probe into corrupt politicians and dirty cops, then broadcast his findings on his public access show. But with this fame came enemies in powerful places, one being Briarcliff police officer / bodybuilder Nicholas Tartaglione, who in 1997 pulled Clay Tiffany over, warned him to stop looking into the police department, said he has ties with the mob, then physically assaulted the TV host. Obviously, this led Clay to delve further into the cop, and so began a long-standing feud between the two. Tiffany dug into his past and found that Tartaglione had a history of assault in his time as a police officer. Clay Tiffany would slam him and the BPD on Dirge for the Charlatans, and in retaliation, Tartaglione would find him and beat him up. This happens at least 4 times, with the last confrontation putting Clay in the hospital. He would host the next episode from his hospital bed. Clay sued the police department, winning a big settlement, but Tartaglione was never charged or found guilty of a crime. Until this story goes somewhere I never could have predicted. Clay Tiffany passed away in March 2015 of natural causes, and the following year, Nicholas Tartaglione was arrested after killing 4 men over stolen drug money and burying them in a mass grave in the woods. Tartaglione, now facing a life sentence, has been behind bars since his arrest, where in 2019, he was the last person to share a prison cell with Jeffrey Epstein.
I'll await the answers. I just want the answers. I mean, I'm not an investigative reporter. I can't even call myself a journalist. I like to talk about things that are going on in the world and analyze it and then give you my perspective. That's all I do. I'm not some roving reporter with the little pin in his hat or whatever they used to do. That characterization. I'm not that guy. I just saw that and I'm a little curious. So any of you investigators out there, any of you internet sleuths, I'm not even that good at that, bro. I investigate and I research and I read a lot and I listen to things, but I'm not like good at getting to the in depths of the internet and finding out things that are hard to find from some old records from 2015 or 1992 that was set in, and the potential like attacks that Nicholas Tartaglione had on the local access guy who was exposing bad cops in New York. I don't have any of that expertise. If any of you guys do, or if you have a friend that does, please get them on it and maybe explain to me why what I'm seeing isn't what I'm seeing. That's all I need. All right. 5 minutes until John's show. I want to put that in your ears. Maybe ask John. Maybe John's good at this. I don't know. But anyways, glad you guys were here. Good times. If nothing else, it was entertaining. At least that story, if not completely nefarious, and maybe part of the answers that we're looking for that we're not getting. Hope you guys had a good time. We'll be back tomorrow for our Friday edition of the Watch Party. Get your drinks ready. Start planning it now, actually. I don't want you guys to try and grab, the drinks out of the fridge, or maybe get your mixers ready right before noon Eastern tomorrow. I want you to get it going now because it's a Friday. I feel like the week is kind of flying by. I mean, I have my daily drink here. I can't be drinking right now because I'll probably go on wild tangents where, I talk about weird connections and murders happening of someone that was mysteriously killed in prison. Committed suicide. We'll see you guys tomorrow. We're going to have a big party and we'll talk then. I appreciate you. If you like what we're doing, continue to please check us out every day. Like, subscribe, send that out, share it with your friends. Tell the folks in the Damage Report what we're doing too. Tell the rest of the Dragons to come by at noon. We need a bigger group here. I feel like we need a bigger group here. We'll see you guys later. Find me on Instagram as well. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye, Ma.